No kidding. Okay. Well, as Matt said, I'm David Raymond. I was born July 29th, 1975 in Fort Benning, Georgia. I was a military brat, an Army brat, kind of. I was actually born a month early, had jaundice, my lungs weren't fully developed, so they rushed me to Columbus Medical Center in Columbus, Georgia, where I stayed for 2 weeks. My mom at the time was a stay-at-home mom. I had my dad was active duty military police officer. My sister was 3. Matt, if you want to throw up that first picture of my daddy. He was like I said, he was a military police officer. He went off to Panama and left when I was about 3 months old. He went to Panama and kind of never came back. My mom and him got divorced. My grandpa died, which is my mom's dad, died when I was 8 months old. So I never got to meet him. All I really knew about my dad when I was growing up was that he had my sister, they had my sister, then they had me. My Uncle D had all boys, and he wanted girls. So my entire life growing up, I thought that my dad left because I was a boy. That was my belief for years, is that the reason my dad left was because I was a boy, he wanted a girl, so he left. So we went on, and then a little while later, we moved up to Ovid, Michigan, where I was raised. You can skip the Sorry Sunday, I'm sorry, Matt, and go to the next slide after that. Yes, my sister and my mom raised me. Those were my favorite pants ever. That picture has circulated our family for years. Those were my favorite pants. My mom couldn't get them off me. Those were my ducky pants. We lived in a house on, I think, Pearl Street until I was about 2, where we moved into the trailer park. We moved into the trailer park in Ovid because we had a lot of family there. And we had or I should say, my sister had some friends there. I was the boy in the girl trailer park. So I could tell you everything about women and girls and growing up. I could tell you nothing about men stuff, nothing. I could tell you too much about women's stuff. If you want to go to the next slide. Nina, my sister, growing up, I would follow her around like you would not believe. She was my everything. My mom actually got in trouble once because she was changing my diaper, or I had taken a bath, and she realized she'd forgotten the diaper, so she went to get the diaper. I heard Nina's voice coming home from school, so I ran out the door buck naked to go meet my sister. And she got Child Protective Services called on her because she allowed me to run around naked. Yeah, crazy people. Our family was pretty good. We had little to no money. My mom worked at a hospital. We barely had a pot to pee in and window throw out of. But what we did have was a lot of love, and that's what mattered. If you want to put the family photo up. Oh, yes, the family. That's my mom, me, and my sister. I was a chunky boy. I've always been a chunky boy. And as I grew up, we made friends in school. One of the friends we're going to talk about is a girl by the name of Sherry. She was a friend in school, and I met her because my mom, or her dad, fixed my mom's 1975 Ford Pinto. And we had to go over there. Well, Sherry was one of 9 kids. Her second youngest sister happened to be a girl named Kelly. Kelly was red hair, and she was very, very mean, according to Sherry. According to Sherry, she would hit her all the time. Kelly would hit Sherry all the time. But because my mom and Fred and their mom, Kathy, with a K, were so nice and loving and thought that Sherry and I made a great couple, they forced us to go out on a movie date with their babysitter at the time, like a double date. I had no interest in her because she had issues and she yelled a lot. She has no talking voice, it's all yelling voice. But we did it, whatever. Kelly hated me so much that she would actually go and ask to take a nap when we would go over to get our car fixed, which sometimes her parents would oblige to. Okay, I made other friends like Mandy and Dan and some other people, but that's beside the point. Back to the story. Yeah, here. In 1988, that's when my life kind of started to turn. My grandma Howarth, my dad's mom, passed away. She owned a farm. My sister and I would go out there quite a lot. That's where I learned a work ethic. Baling hay, feeding cows, pigs, you know it. I loved it. Oh man, I loved farm work. I hated it at the time, but I learned now where that hard work came in. But when my grandma passed away, one of my aunt's old boyfriends from millennials ago started trying to get with my aunt because she had just broken up with her husband. Well, that friend was just too aggressive, so my aunt, being my mom's best friend, asked my mom to play the wing woman and kind of keep them separated. So this friend Pat got his friend Joe to be his wingman to keep my mom separated from them so he could make his move. Well, it so happened that her ex-husband got into it. They ended up moving in with us. Then they ended up, because of death threats or something like that, they moved down with my dad. Now, I have still only seen my dad 5 times, talked to him maybe 6 in all this time since 1975 to 1988. 7th grade hit. My mom is still talking to Joe. Pat has done left the scene. I was 7th grade is a horrible grade for I think just about everybody because that's when cliques start kicking in, and I was just unmercifully I don't want to say abused, unmercifully picked on and bullied from kids to teachers. I literally had a teacher in front of my mom tell me that I was a worthless piece of white trash that would never accomplish anything in my life except be on welfare and useless. And in a small town, it just so happened that the teacher and the worst bully of mine was also my teacher's kid and the principal's boy, who also was a Churchill relative of ours. So to complain about being bullied and pushed down the stairs and kicked and punched, nothing was ever done because, well, who would I tell? The principal? Well, my boy wouldn't do anything, of course. Well, I failed 7th grade that year, and my mom fell in love with Joe, decided we're going to move up to Greenville and start a life up here because things were getting serious. So my mom moved up to Greenville, left my sister and I down at Ovid until she could find a place up here. So here I am. I had to grow up quick. My sister had a friend, we'll call her Amanda, who was very promiscuous, into drugs, into all kinds of stuff. My sister fell into depression. She started smoking. She started doing drugs. She started doing all kinds of things that she shouldn't be doing. Me, I always thought that I should take care of my sister. So to this day, I take care of my sister. And I couldn't do anything. I felt helpless. But I couldn't try to stop her. I tried to stop her, but like my Uncle Denny, who is he lived in Tennessee, but he always meant a lot to me. And my Uncle Jim, who lived there in Ovid, but he has a family of his own and his own issues, taught me that I needed to take care of my sister. And I just felt like I wasn't enough. Next slide. But like this saying says, sometimes the prettiest smile hides the deepest secrets. The prettiest eyes prettiest eyes have cried the most tears, and the kindest hearts have felt the most pain. So I smiled every time my mom would come back home to give some money to help pay bills or to get some groceries. I would smile, be excited to see her, because she had like every other weekend off. So every 2 weeks, she'd come home on a Friday, leave on Sunday, and be gone for 2 weeks. And we had family around, but nobody ever really checked on us. So for me, I just felt like I wasn't enough, because it was proven, because my dad left as soon as I was born. I only had a couple friends. All my family that was around would never check on us. Nina was falling into depression and drugs. My mom was MIA. I'm 13, trying to run a household on my own, basically with a bi-weekly paycheck, and an out-of-control 15-year-old daughter who literally would throw knives at me. Not that I am perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I'm 13. In September of 1989, my mom finally was able to get an apartment here in Greenville and move us all up here. The first day I started at Greenville Middle School, Mr. Dan Eagles was my counselor, and he was awesome. He set me up with a class in classes, and with a bit of trepidation, I was taken to my first class, algebra, with Mrs. Dalmatter. I'll never forget her. She was the sweetest teacher. I was sat next to a young lady named Kathy Snow, who soon became one of my best friends, and still is today. Her dad and her mom took me in and treated me like family. The very next class, the verbal abuse and bullying started with the band director, Mr. Heidenberg. I didn't bring my instrument. He told me that I was stupid, put me in the corner in the front of the band room, and every mistake anybody made in that band class, he would say, "Hey, Kelly, you missed that note. But at least it's not as bad as not bringing your instrument like Mr. Brayman up here." My first day ever in the school. And it continued on with people like Jake Kemp and Reuben Babbitt. But they were big names in Greenville, so nobody cared. Nobody did anything. In 8th grade, I was diagnosed with a muscle movement disorder where I would have twitches that were so bad that we had the big oak couch with the big cushions that everybody had with the flowers on it. Okay, you see it floating around the internet now where people say, "You remember these couches?" Okay, I'd be laying in front of it and my mom would be on it. And my mom has probably lost 100 pounds since then. And my mom would be on it and I'd have a seizure and it would push that back with her on it so hard that it would leave indents in the wall. That's how bad they were. Yeah. So I spent most of 8th grade being homeschooled by Barb Bremer, who would bring the homework to me and would teach me there at home. Barb became a very good friend of mine, and has helped me even through college. When I had some college math homework that I needed help with, she helped me through that. 9th grade is when my world turned upside down completely. Mom and Joe, during that entire time, were off again and on again. One of my mom's coworkers, Missy, introduced her to her uncle, Jim. Jim and my mom fell in love. Jim was great to us at first. And then he started drinking. When he moved in, he started drinking. We noticed the drinking. And he started to abuse me physically. And me, all that I thought of was he never touched my mom. He never hurt my mom. I never saw him do anything to my mom. I'm in ninth grade. I've got 4 years, and I'm out of here. And if I just keep my mouth shut, because my mom was everything to me. My mom loved me. My mom has always been there for me. So if I just keep my mouth shut, take the abuse for 4 years, I can just get out of here. My mom will be happy. My mom has somebody that loves her and she loves, and I can just get out of here and it'll be done. So I took the physical abuse for years, for 9th, 10th, and first half of my 11th grade year. I suffered having my foot broke, dislocated AC joint, my leg broke, and I had two good friends, Troy Gavitt and Roy Gibson, who would come over and get me, sneak me over to their house to get away from the abuse. And then between the three of us, we would figure out how to set it up so it looked like a football injury or a wrestling injury. So we could push off to my mom that it wasn't Jim that did it. One day, probably the worst that I can remember was the day I was sitting on the couch, and Jim, I've always wanted to be a police officer, and Jim, being not a very lawful guy, pulled me in with a rep, his arm around my shoulder, which was weird, pulled me in, and he says, "Dave, I can't wait until you become a police officer." That's the first compliment he's ever given me. I'm like, "Well, gee, thanks." And then he proceeded to explain to me why he wanted me to be a police officer, because much like they think of police officers now and they do to police officers in New York, that's what he wanted to do to me. And he said that with a loaded weapon beside him, which was very scary. I missed a lot of football practices in the 11th grade because the abuse got so severe that I would be beat at home and I couldn't make it to football practices. And Mr. Oatley, Todd Oatley, now the principal at the middle school, or at the high school, told me, "Hey, if you miss another practice, Raymond, you're out of here." Well, I'm like, "Okay, sir, I won't miss anymore," because that was my saving, man. That's the way I got out of the house. Nobody ever showed up. I was first-line bench warmer. I never got to play. I wasn't any good. But I showed up to football practice late, had my gear in my bag, gave my gear to Mr. Oatley because I missed practice. I thought very deeply about telling him that I was late because I spent last hour being a punching bag for my stepfather, and I almost did, but I didn't because I didn't want to bother him. And I've talked to Mr. Oatley about it just a few years ago, and he said, that same day he knew something was wrong, and he almost asked me, but he didn't want to pry. So it's kind of funny how all that works. And like I said, I just wanted to make it to graduation. Well, halfway through 11th grade year, I walked into the house, and some of you guys remember this thing that hung on the wall where you'd pick up the phone and you'd have to go, the phone that was on the wall, and then you'd actually get charged per minute to use it. Well, I was actually taking Sanshiro Karate at the time, and I was getting ready to be tested for black belt. And as soon as I walked in the door at like 2:30, Jim starts yelling at me about a 47-cent phone call that I made to the main office in Pleasant Lake about my black belt testing, because you have to go in front of all the masters to get tested for black belt. And he starts making fun of me, says, "Oh, is that your pink belt?" Stuff like that. I'd had a rough day because I'd been picked on at school. I'd been picked on here, been picked on there. I wasn't doing good in school, and I had a rough day, and I made two of the dumbest comments of my life because I said, you know what, just shut up, because at least my courage comes from inside and not a tin can. Jim wasn't drunk. He was just a little bit inebriated. So he stood up and he started coming at me with a closed fist. And I said, sit down. You're not going to hit me because you got common sense and a will to live. Why did I say that? I have no idea. Still to this day, I don't know where it came from or why I said it. Because I am not an instigator. I don't like to fight. Okay, I took karate to get out of the house. I took football to get out of the house. I still to this day do not know why I would have said that. But he did swing at me. And out of instinct, I blocked his punch, flipped him over, or flipped him around, and kicked the inside of his leg and knocked him down. I freaked out. I mean, there was one time that he did that, and I threw him over my back, and we all laughed. Because like my mom was there and everything, and we just kind of all laughed because he didn't expect me to be able to do that. But this is actually, I actually defended myself without thinking, and I freaked out. And I left. I was in tears because now I know my mom's going to be home in a minute. He's cussing and screaming at me, and I don't know what to say because now I've got to explain to my mom why I hit her husband. So I jump in my car and I take off. I meet her right on Edgewood before we get to the apartment, and I'm in tears. So Mom, we stop. She asked me what's going on, and I'm like, ask Jim. And I just left because I couldn't talk. I figured I'd just go with whatever Jim had to say. Because I knew he wouldn't say that I hit him or that he would hit me. And if he wanted to say that I hit him, I was just going to go with it. And I'd take the grounding or the spanking or whatever she wanted to do to me. Whatever Jim said, I was just going to go with. But Jim kicked me out. That's what happened. Jim kicked me out, said I can't come back to the house anymore. I went to a friend's house. I had a friend, went to his house. Well, Mom went home, found out what happened, and then she called me and wanted to meet up with me and talk to me about it. I thought, okay, cool. She kicked Jim out and was going to have me come home. Great. So she meets up with me, and the solution was I had a choice. I could either move to Ovid with my uncle, or I could move to Olivet with my aunt. But she couldn't kick Jim out because it's his house. Well, I have friends in Ovid. My aunt in Olivet, she's like a second mom to me. I spend every summer there and like that. But I have nobody in Olivet that I know. In Ovid, I still have lots of friends. So I'm like, okay, I'll move in with my uncle. All right? God's blueprint. I can't read that. But I can't. Where God has destined my life and career to go, even if you tried, you couldn't stop me from getting there. I am God's blueprint. Reflect God's engineering. My self-worth is not based on what you think of me. So 11th grade comes. I move in with my Uncle Jim and my Aunt Patty. Great people. They had two young kids. Love those guys. Still love them today. Now they're a lot older. But living with them, I had two choices. I could either stay with them at night. I kept calling my two friends, Dan and Andy, who were brothers. And the only thing that I could do with them is go to the stupid church youth group thing. Their church youth group had basketball, video game night, movie night, swimming night, blah, 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 blah. But you always had to listen to this sermon about God. I didn't give a rip about God. God was just this fake way for dumb people to give up their worries and concerns, because there's no way that a loving God would let all this stuff happen to me. I love everybody. I'm nice to everybody. And God has let everybody who's ever cared about me leave me, push me away. Oh yeah, good job. Good love, God. But our option was to go with them and listen to this junk God thing, or hang out with a 2 and 3-year-old. So, thinking about it, what would be better? What does a 17-year-old boy like to do? Hang out with 17-year-old girls at this God thing, or hang out with a 2 and 3-year-old? Oh, the God thing had girls, so I went with the girls. After a while of going to this church thing, my walls started breaking down. I started listening, started hearing some of the things that they said. And the scripture here will pop up, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Wow, that really hit hard. Well, in this group, and we all went to the same church, I hooked back up with my friend Danny and Andy. I hooked up with a girl that was like a neighbor of my daycare when I was little, named Mandy. And I hooked up with that Kelly chick from, her dad used to fix my mom's car. And my aunt and uncle would fight all the time. I always thought the fighting was about me, because I was just another bother to them. When they're trying to raise a 2 and 3-year-old, I'd have to get up. I'd wake them up trying to get ready for school. So I ended up moving in with Dan and Andy, because I have to go to school same time they did. We went to school together, blah, blah, blah. One day, my dad, who I haven't seen in years, calls me up on the phone and says, "Hey, I'm at Trent Burns' house. Come see me." Well, Dan and Andy both got up, went to work. Their dad asked them to shovel the drive. And neither one of them did it. They just pulled out and took off. I get up because I got a phone call from my dad saying he's here. The dad I haven't seen since I was 16. So I jump up and I get in my car, and the dad asked me to shovel the drive, and I'm like, I will. I got to go meet my dad. He's like, "Oh, no, you're not. You're going to go meet some girl, aren't you? If you can't do some help around here, you can pack your duds and get out." So I got done meeting my dad, talked to him for a few hours, went back, packed my duds, and I moved in with my Aunt Bunny, my Aunt Bernice in Ovid, which is my dad's sister. I stayed there maybe a week, and then my aunt's middle daughter, Kelly, she's always been a little bit of a mischievous person. She started locking the door every night. My aunt goes to bed real early, so she would lock the door so I couldn't get in, because I worked late night at a gas station. So she would lock the door so I couldn't get in. First week, I just pound on the door, and beg them until somebody would let me in. And then I just stopped. My grandma had 100 and some odd acres, so I worked at Walmart, so I used my Walmart discount, bought a couple blankets, 2 baskets. So I had 2 baskets in the trunk of my car, and I had 2 blankets. On the cold days, I would just park on in the cornfield, which in a farming community isn't odd to see a car in a cornfield. I just park there, cover up the blankets. I had a basket of dirty clothes, a basket of clean clothes. I shower at the high school. And then when I had a day off, I'd take my laundry to the laundromat there in Ovid. Pretty simple, pretty easy. The end of September of that year, Kelly, that Kelly girl, broke up with her boyfriend then, Ben, and I had broken up with Mandy. Mandy had gone to college, and we decided that we were friends, but we weren't friends like that. All right. Well, then October 2nd of 94, we had a youth event. We built a porch for an old couple who were just using the bricks as a porch. So we built a porch for them. I got stung by a bee. Kelly, who you might have guessed by now is the redhead Kelly sitting here, took me back to her place so her mom could give me some Benadryl and make sure I wasn't having a reaction, because her mom knew me and we've known each other for years. So we did that. Then we come back, and this little pistol friend of ours named Chrissy Adams kept bugging us. David, you don't have a girlfriend anymore. Kelly, you don't have a boyfriend anymore. You guys should go out on a date. You guys should go out on a date. We did not want to go on a date so bad that Kelly actually went to my friend Andy and said, if David has any thought of making this a relationship, he needs to rethink this. So, and I'm like, good, because I'm thinking the same thing. Okay, I have no plan to make this a thing. But we went just to shut her up. October 9th, 1994. I take her to Mancino's in St. John's. We order, we sit down, small little table. She starts tapping her foot. Ugh, small table, it's the only thing they had. She keeps kicking my knees. So I put my hands on my knees to protect my knees from being kicked. Well, she stops kicking her foot. I untie her shoe and I tie the table because I'm a little bit of a smart aleck, if you don't know. Yeah, well, the meal takes a while. It gets there. I forget I've tied her shoe to the table. She doesn't realize I've tied her shoe to the table. I'm a gentleman. I pick everything up when we're done, and I start walking to the trash to throw it away, and all of a sudden I hear, whoosh, ah! And I turn around, and she's halfway up, halfway down, and she looks up at me, laughing, and she says, oh, you're such a dork, which ironically still to this day is my pet name for her, or from her. Marriage meant to be, Matt. Yeah. The couples that are meant to be are the ones who go through everything that's destined to tear them apart and come out even stronger. Yes. Oh, my word. Well, then, December 17th, 1994. So October 9th of 94 to December 17th of 94. Next photo. This day, December 17th, 1994, I talked to her dad and got permission to propose to her. The families knew each other. We knew what we were getting into. And I proposed to her. This is the picture after I'd proposed. Yeah, I was looking good there, wasn't I? Yeah. February. In February, Dad found out. Dad Fred, Kelly's dad, found out that I was sleeping in my car, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he made me come to the house. Pretty much explained, here's my bedroom, here's Kelly's bedroom, here's the bathroom. I have a 45 in my bedroom. Don't break the boundaries. But you can sleep on the couch because you're not sleeping in your car. So I slept on the couch the rest of my senior year. In June of 95, we graduated. June 8th of 95, we graduated. June 8th of 1996, ta-da! We were married. She said yes. Kelly and I were told in 1997, we moved up here to go to college and work. In 1997, we were told that we would never be able to have kids because when I was 16, I was kicked in a very uncomfortable place, and that it would be more logical for Kelly to get me pregnant than me to get her pregnant. Well, the next slide. Next slide, Matt. When God has selected you, it does not matter who else has rejected or neglected you. God's favor outweighs all opponents. You are all oppositions. You are a winner. God is more powerful than a kick to the junk. January 20th of 01. Okay. God bless us with Dylan. I say blessing with a question mark because on January 21st of 01, I wake up, walk out to the nursery, and I see a dad's worst nightmare. I see the nurses all doing CPR on Dylan. I hear the nurse call Dr. Curry, the pediatrician on call, and say, "This is nurse so-and-so from United. Baby boy Brayman is having focal seizures. We need you to come in, and we need permission to push phenobarbital." Dr. Curry, I did all my internship with DeVos Children's Hospital. I've seen focal seizures. I know what they are. I'm begging you to allow us to push phenobarbital and to please come in and check him out. Hello? Hello? Hear the phone slam down, and I hear her call in to the other nurses who are currently doing CPR on my one-day-old baby, or actually less than 1-year-old baby, or one-day-old baby, I'm sorry. He said, "It's not a seizure, and we need to deal with it." At which point, they get on the phone and they call Dr. Benzing, who is a pediatrician who works the ER. I know this because I was a paramedic, so I knew the doctors. Dr. Benzing comes in, and he checks him out, comes out, tells me they're calling the neonate response team. He gets shipped down to DeVos Children's Hospital under the care of Dr. Ben Doctor. Wow, how impressive. Doctor. So, I don't know, he got 2 doctors. So, Dr. Ben Doctor, I love that guy. Kelly was stuck in the hospital with an infection. Kelly actually got given some drugs because she was getting sick and ripping her stitches. So, she was passed out. I'm trying to call my mom, but every time she answers, all I can do is cry because I'm a big baby. And they keep saying, when she tries to call back, they send her to the room to the left of ours and to the right of ours, but never our room. Oh, it was wonderful. Finally, my mom says, "Hey, you know what? If he's calling or crying, there's something wrong, I'm coming up." So she comes up. Kelly, still sick, so Dr. Wallace-Hatter writes her a 24-hour pass to go down to a bedside consult to see what's up with Dylan. And then she has to come back. We get down there. We're in this room with these doctors and specialists and all this. And Dr. Ben Doctor says, basically, half of your son's brain is dead. The best hope for him is if we give him the training now and therapy now, he'll be able to eat without drooling on himself by the time he's 18. And then Kelly's like, "Okay, but can I see him? He's almost a week old, and I have not even seen the baby that has been inside me for the last 9 months." So they wheel her into the NICU, and they open the isolette, and Dylan kind of shifts and moves, picks his hand up, and reaches for Kelly's finger and grabs it. The nurse audibly behind us goes, "That's the most he's moved since he's been here." And now Dylan is the long-haired hippie guy back there. Looks pretty darn good for having half a brain. He's doing pretty good, I think. Wow. A week later, we get a call that we can bring him home. I have been running back and forth to the hospital for him. All right, but it's all good. He comes home. We're good. 9/11 happens, I find out my dad was stationed at the Pentagon when 9/11 happened. Last anybody knew. And I'm hit. I'm thinking, my dad's dead. I don't even know who he is. So I called the number. Long story short, I made contact with my dad. And now my dad is part of my kids' life. Like that weekend, he came up and knocked on my door at 7 in the morning and said, or called me and said, do you guys have coffee? No, we don't drink coffee. Do you have something at the house? Yeah. Well, make me some and open the door because I'm cold. And we have a great relationship, and he lives right here in Greenville now. My mom and him, and love it to pieces. February 22nd, Dylan had a seizure, and I got fired because I chose to go to the hospital with him instead of going to work. Then, oops, God did it again. July 29th, Devin was born. We were put in the dungeon. If anyone remembers the old hospital, we were put in the dungeon, the old green room back behind the nurse's station. It was horrible. But Kelly picks on me because I delivered one baby during Danish Festival, so I was an expert. So when I walked back there, because it's my birthday, July 29th, that's my birthday. So there's no way that she could have the baby on my birthday. There's no way. And that was my first day of ever being able to work a day shift for the police department. So I got all ready to go. Just had my vest and my gun belt in the car. Called my sergeant, so I'll be in a couple hours. Just got to show Kelly that she's having false contractions. I'll be in a couple hours. So I stop out in the hallway to call my mom and say, can you come get Dylan? Kelly's having false contractions. She'll be there picking back up in a few. I walk back in, and Kelly's like, I think my water broke. I'm an expert because I've delivered one baby. I know when the water breaks, it's all at once. So I walk out, because Kelly's like, oh, David, I didn't just pee myself. I walk out, and I go to the nurse, and I'm like, ma'am, your water breaks, it's all at once, right? It's not just a little bit at a time. And she's like, well, go either way. And that's when it clicked what she said. And I'm like, wait, my wife's an adult. She would know that. So I told the nurse, I think by that time, the waterworks had come, and sure enough, we had Devin on my birthday, and I'm a dumb dad. Oh, wow. November 9th, 2011. We're jumping ahead here. I was walking in to the doctor's office because a couple days earlier, I had a blood clot in my leg, they thought. I was just a checkup. I hear a pop in the back of my head. Last thing I remember. From the memories that people have told me, Maury, Dr. Page's PA, walks in, and I'm leaned over, hunched over, and he cracks a joke because I'm a joker, and I got left side of my face is droopy. I can't use the left side of my body. They think I'm having a stroke. They call the ambulance, but the ambulance is coming from like way out of nowhere. They call Kelly. Kelly's like, okay, I'll be right there. Well, if you guys remember Greenville history, November 9th of 2011 is when the Huntington Bank downtown got robbed. Kelly, going from Van Dyne Street to the doctor's office behind Jimmy John's, she decides to turn left and go down through town because that's how she always goes home. And so everything was blocked off. She was rerouted a million times. I think it took her like 5 hours to get there or something. But the doctors were really freaked out and kept calling her. 3 months of fighting, because Dr. Page, our primary care doctor, saw the Chiari-1 malformation. I knew what it was on the exams, but only a neurosurgeon can diagnose it because they're gods, right? So going back and forth to ERs, Butterworth and United labeled me as a drug seeker, as clinically depressed, and a liar. Finally, when I was at Butterworth, and a ER doctor called Dr. Page and asked if he wanted to have me admitted for psychiatric evaluation because I was lying about the pain and numbness. He said that no, I am not depressed. I have a job, but I can't go to it because of the problems, and demanded that I get admitted. She admitted me. On my admittance report, it says that I was admitted despite her beliefs per my primary care doctor to see a neurosurgeon. I was seen by everybody but a neurosurgeon. Kelly found a blood clot in my leg. The nurse told her that she didn't know what she was talking about and to stop making stuff up to make me stay in the hospital. Kelly fought it. They finally sent me down for a Doppler. They found a blood clot in my leg. I get back. The doctor comes in. This Russian doctor from Butterworth comes in and says, Mr. Brayman, there's nothing wrong with you other than the blood clot in your leg. We have to have a neurosurgeon come in because your doctor demands it. But other than that, we're going to send you home. Do you have any questions? And we're both like, yes, we do. What's causing this? And she says, your depression. If you need any help, there's a list of psychiatrists. You can go see them. And smugly walks out. Dr. Weinstone walked in, and he says, do you have any, you're in a little bit of pain, Mr. Brayman? And I'm stuttering because I can't talk. And I'm like, yeah. And he says, well, you should be, which shocked both of us. He pulls us out in the hallway and shows us the MRI where my brain is 18 millimeters into my spinal column. My cerebellum tonsils, or my cerebellum and tonsils, are being crushed into my spinal column. I have a 3-inch long, half-inch deep syrinx on my spine. It's pushing on the nerves. It's preventing spinal fluid from getting into my brain. So I'm stuttering, like the fluid will push on the spinal cord and will make my left side of my body go numb. But then as they jostle me around to do the tests, the fluid will move. So then my right side will go numb. That's why it differentiates. That's why I'm a liar, because one side would be numb and then the other side would be numb. So Dr. Weinstone said I had to have emergency brain surgery right away. Kelly brings up, well, what about the blood clot? He said, oh, we can't touch you until the blood clot's gone. So a few months later, they get rid of the blood clot, put a filter in, then allow me to have a surgery. I have surgery number 1. I was just up there. And then surgery 1 scared me a lot. Charlene Kehoe was a great friend, and she came up. She was one of the youth at the time, and her crying really hit me hard because I knew she loved me. And the Cohens came up, and Roy and Katie, which are friends of mine, helped watch the kids, and then surgery number 2. It was pretty bad. They had to do a pretty big cut. My mom and Nina helped take care of me. And I even got so bad that I told Kelly, I actually told Kelly, you can leave. You're young. The kids are young. You're beautiful. Find somebody else. You didn't sign up for this. Okay? Which brings me to 1 Corinthians 4-7. For who makes a difference from anyone? 4-7. 1 Corinthians 4-7. All right. Well, it's basically the one that you hear at weddings. Love is patient, love is kind. Is that all right. But yeah, and she would not leave. And then one Sunday I woke up with a massive headache and a swollen neck. Called the doctor, finally got back to me. He said, oh, it's probably just more pulled muscles. We'll call in some painkillers. Vic Cooper and Charlene brought over the meds for me. Went and got them, brought them over. Knocked out all Sunday, slept. Monday, I finally, surgery 3. I get called in, and I had to go in for another surgery. My mom calls Kelly. Kelly comes to get me, because Dr. Weinstone said, you probably have a leak. You need to get in here for surgery immediately. Kelly tries to take me to Butterworth, but we get to Lincoln Lake Road. I'm screaming with every bump. She's freaking out. She can't do it. We go to UMH, and 8:40 in the morning, we pull in there. We look at the receptionist, and she's like, he just had brain surgery. We called Dr. Weinstone, and he said he needs to get to Butterworth right away for another emergency surgery, but I'm shaking. I can't drive him. And they're like, okay. They checked me in. They said, oh, this is the liar drug seeker. 7 p.m. at night. I'm still at UMH. Kelly steps outside to call my mom to let her know he's still here. Gets a call from Dr. Weinstone's nurse saying, where are you at? This is my personal cell phone. Call me. She calls him, then she calls the nurse. Nurse calls Dr. Weinstone. Kelly calls my mom back to let her know. When Kelly's walking back in, she hears the doctor on the phone and leaves the door open because she's nosy, and hears the doctor say, they weren't lying. That was the surgeon on the phone. They need him down at Butterworth right now. Within 10 minutes, I was on the ambulance, licensed sirens, to Butterworth. They ended up having to do the surgery the next day, and Kelly ended up having to come back to Greenville because MCC made her take her statistics exam that night or fail her class. So she had to take her test, knowing that her husband had, I think they said that I had like a 40% chance of being able to walk or talk after that surgery. So I was finally able to do that. Surgery 4. Yeah, it took me a while to learn to walk, talk, eat, use hands. And then I fell into a very deep depression, a very, very deep depression, because I'm a people person. There was nobody around. I had nobody around. And I had several bouts of considering suicide. But each time, there was 2 times that it was considered, and Ray Transu showed up just out of a whim to visit me. There was a time that Chris Cohn showed up to visit me. Literally at that exact time they showed up. And there's one time where there was a failure of the item. But I had Pastor Matt visit me and Abby, but those visits just meant the world to me. My mom and Nina stayed with me for quite a while. I went from 220 to 370 pounds because I was stuck in a wheelchair, which that also depressed me. And because who likes to be fat? I struggled with being a man. I mean, what's a man? I'm useless. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't help my own family. As you're growing up, you're taught what's a man. The version of a man. No matter what you do, you're not enough, or I'm not enough. We're supposed to pay for dinner, open doors, carry heavy stuff, and call you ma'am. But nowadays, that's insulting. Your mental health doesn't matter. Male suicide rate is 3 times that of a female. If a guy tries to open up about their depression, they're told to walk it off. When you meet a woman, you're automatically a predator, and they must keep a taser, pepper spray, or something to defend themselves against you. In a relationship, if you're unhappy, well, that's your fault. And if the woman's unhappy, well, that's your fault too. If you can't provide, well, loser. So 9 years of counseling, compassion and love is a slide. When God puts love and compassion in your heart towards someone, He's offering you the opportunity. He's offering you the opportunity to make a difference in that person's life. In that person's life, you must learn to follow that love. Don't ignore it, act on it. Somebody needs what you have. I had to straighten my head out. Not everybody is going to love me, and I had to realize that. Uh, I started helping out at Flat River Academy, and with the kids who were struggling, and I love that. The kids would come to me, talk to me, and you can show the two pictures of Flat River Academy. The kids would come to me because that was my desk drawer. That was the top drawer full of candy, and the next one, that was the bottom drawer. The kids would come to me, and I'd give them a snack. I talked to them, and I'd helped a lot of kids out. But I ended up quitting due to politics. One of my big success stories is a girl named Charlie. Love her to pieces. I helped her out through a lot of stuff, family, personal, all that kind of stuff. And now she is married. She has a baby. She actually called me or texted me when she had her baby, the day after she had the baby, and said, "Hey, your grandpa." And I just happened to be getting my blood drawn that day. So I went right upstairs to meet her. She still calls me every day. I see the baby. I see her. She has her own house. She has a family growing. It's awesome to see that go so great. Kelly and I, we don't have a perfect marriage. I'll tell you that right now. We've had our ups and downs. We had to fight over misunderstandings and my personal feeling of lack of being a man. But overall, we have made it. We've made it through it. And then last is just, I keep Matthew 6:25 through 34 in my mind, where it talks about why do you worry about what you eat, what you have, what you don't have, when God takes care of the birds and the flowers. Don't you mean more to him than those things? Sorry, I know I ran long, but that's me in a nutshell.